So the Fjords artwork is bad. The Fjords artwork is good. We've heard tons of different opinions about this Kickstarter campaign in the comments on BGG, on Reddit, everywhere. And at the end of the day, this is a game that has been out of print for a long time, and there's a lot of excitement, a lot of strong feelings about it coming back. I know even from us as well. I was thrilled when I heard that Fjords was being reprinted because I loved the original. There's a lot to talk about with this one, and we're going to break down everything you need to know about the Fjords campaign, so stick with us. So I'm Dylan, this is Carlo, we're from All You Can Board, and today we're talking Fjords. So Fjords, if you're not aware, was a game that came out back in 2005. It was designed by Franz Benno Delange, and it is a tile laying game, and it's a game that I personally loved when I played, and it has been almost impossible to find. Like, if not impossible, very, very hard to find for a long time, and this is obviously the reprint of it. Unfortunately, the designer did pass away after he designed the game, so this is being brought back with his design intact, but also with a bunch of new elements added on if you want to use them. There's a whole bunch of new stuff, but there's also everything you know and love about the original Fjords. So for anyone who doesn't know, Fjords is, like I said, a tile-laying game, and it basically plays in two phases, and it almost kind of feels like two distinct games. The first phase, you're very much building the map. You're essentially building your game board, and there's going to be things you remember from other games like Carcassonne and different things that we'll get into, but you're essentially building your game board, and this is the game board that you're going to have sort of an area area control type game in the second phase. So it feels like two distinct games, but your first game influences how your second one is going to go, and you're planning things out. You're putting down these long houses, and you're going to be able to start from those long houses in the second phase, putting your Vikings into play and trying to take control of the map. So it's very, very interesting. It's very simple in its execution, but it does it so elegantly in a way that when I played it, I immediately, and it was funny because I played it at a game cafe, and it was recommended to me. I had no idea what it was. Got lucky that it was recommended to me, fell in love with it, and I've played it a couple more times since with you and with my partner as well. So I really love it. What were your thoughts when you played it?
Yeah, I've only had to or been able to try it the one time with you there at the game cafe, and I liked it a know if you mentioned, but it's a two-player only game. So I have seen a lot of comparisons made to Carcassonne, and as someone who's played Carcassonne like hundreds of times, there's still a lot of value for, like, if you're a big Carcassonne fan, if you've played it a lot, it's different enough because you are still building this map together. But like Dylan said, not only is it a two-phase game, but in Carcassonne, only one of the you're building, you're fighting for the majority on the land, and you're doing all this stuff with claiming cities and roads. In Fjords, you're really only, like, the land is all that matters kind of thing. Like, there's mountains and water, but it's just kind of to develop the land. You're only placing pieces and actually fighting over the kind of terrain, the grass. So it focuses in on one spot a little more, and it's a little more like blocky, right? You're putting down your tiles and you're trying to cut people off in the scoring phase at the second part. So there's a lot that still makes it different enough from Carcassonne. And it feels a little simpler and cleaner, but it still has that kind of tension where you're trying to figure out where to put stuff to plan for that second phase. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I only had to try it, like I said, the one time a couple of years back, but I've been waiting to play it again, and yeah, I'm super happy that the reprint's here.
Yeah, if anyone has played Blue Lagoon recently, it's not exactly the same. Don't get me wrong. It's not like basically that was a follow up to Fjords or anything. But there's elements of Blue Lagoon that when I played it for the first time, which is a Reiner Knizia game if you haven't played it, and it felt kind of not inspired by, but just close to in some of the elements, parts of Fjords. That's the closest comparison I can make besides Carcassonne, like you did.
Yeah, like Blue Lagoon has the same two-phase thing. They literally call it the same thing, the exploration phase and the settlement phase, because you're putting things down that you can build out from in the second half. So yeah, definitely a good comparison there.
Yeah, so first thing we're going to talk about, we're going to get right into it. Most of the discussion, for better or for worse, about this campaign has been about the artwork. So for those who don't know, the artwork was done by Beth Sobel, who's obviously done a whole bunch of different board games out there. The box cover, I think, is gorgeous. I'll say that first off. I think it's amazing, and we've known about the box cover and that artwork ever since it was first revealed, so we've had a chance to look at it for a while. A lot of the discussion has been about the tile artwork. A lot of people in the community, or at least a subsect of the community, doesn't like the artwork, and it's not to their tastes or what they would want or what they were expecting from Fjords, which is valid. It's very simple artwork. I would argue that even the original Fjords is pretty straightforward and simple.
Absolutely.
Carcassonne as well. Like a lot of these tiling games, when it comes to the tiles, there's information you need to convey, and it can't be too busy because you have to be very distinct between the different areas of the terrain. So yeah, it's simple, and I would even agree that, you know, the artwork that's on the cover of the box isn't necessarily translated into the tiles in terms of its beauty. It's a lot more, it's a lot simpler on the tiles than it is on the box art. So there has been a lot of dissatisfaction, for at least from what we've heard, on the tiles. And I guess what I'll say is that me personally, Fjords coming back and having me having a chance to purchase this game and actually have it in my collection, which I've been wanting to do for a long time, is the driving factor of me backing it. And the fact of the matter is, for a Canadian price, it's a $32 game, which is a more than reasonable price for me to get Fjords into my collection. And that is number one, the reason I backed it immediately. I want Fjords in my collection. I've wanted it for a while. And to me, the artwork, whether you think it could have been better, whether you think, you know, it's better or worse than the original, in my opinion, it's just a sideways step from the original. It's not something that's more amazing. It's not something that's worse. It's just there, and I'm completely fine with that. I feel like if the artwork is more important to you on your tiles, which are going to get covered anyways with longhouses, with the Viking pieces, if that's something that's, you know, a driving factor when it comes to campaigns for you, then absolutely don't back it and don't feel you need to. And I can understand there being some disappointment there for people who potentially, you know, were really excited for the artwork specifically when they heard about Fjords and now are let down. But it is absolutely in your right not to back it for that. And I would, you know, encourage you, if that's something that, you know, you want from your games and you're not getting it, to not back it. But at the same time, I would argue that it's not, that shouldn't be what we're talking about with Fjords here. This is a game that we have not been able to get our hands on for a long time, and the designer passed away. And for, I think, you know, a lot of us, and me included, I just thought I would never get it unless I got lucky and found it on eBay or found it on, you know, the secondary market. And now I have a chance to get it. I can play it with all the classic original rules. If I want to try out new things, there's additional ways to play it. To me, that is the most important thing for me. Whether I am 100% satisfied with the artwork on the tiles almost doesn't matter to me personally, because I am 100% satisfied with the gameplay, and I just cannot wait to play it. And the artwork to me isn't a detriment enough to ruin that experience for me.
No, absolutely not. And if anything, I think it almost pays tribute to the original. It's like you mentioned a couple times how the designer Franz Benno Delange passed away just a couple years after the game came out. And I think if anything, it can be a tough task to be, first off, in Phil Walker Harding's shoes, like being asked as a designer to come on and sort of add additional content to the game. You want to be respectful of, you know, paying tribute to a game of someone who has passed away. You don't want to change it too much. And I think, first off, that was a great choice to have Phil Walker Harding do it. And then when we go back to the artwork, it can be a tough thing as well. Like, as the artist, you want to show off the best work that you can do. And a lot of games that go on Kickstarter do have a lot of sort of extravagant artwork, really fancy components and stuff. And I have to tip my hat to Beth Sobel for sort of paying tribute to the game by keeping that simple kind of look, that simplistic look to it that still, to me, looks beautiful. And to me, again, it comes down to the whole theme of the game is exploring this island. And so, like, literally, again, the phases are the exploration phase and the settlement phase. And I saw some of the complaints were not even that the colors or whatever on the artwork, but that it's like there should be more stuff on the tiles, like more background, little like sheep and things. But to me, it's like the whole point is you're exploring this island, and then you place the pieces on, and it kind of develops as you play. And that's part of the beauty of the game, is you're exploring this unexplored land that has nothing to it, and then you're settling it yourselves, and that's part of the charm. So I think, like you say, to criticize the simplistic artwork is like, that's what the original was going for, and that's kind of what they're trying to preserve, is like kind of just bring back the original. So I think it was the right choice to take the approach they did with the art. So yeah, it's definitely not an issue for me. But again, like you said, everyone's entitled to their opinion about where the art is. I just don't think it should be, again, the focus of what's making you choose to back the game or not. Because if the artwork's going to make you, like, if that's going to be the deciding factor, then maybe the gameplay isn't enough to hook you in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I will stress, if you have not played Fjords, I think this is like a fantastic two-player game, and that it would be a shame to miss out on it just because of the artwork, unless you feel so strongly that you just like think it's ugly and cannot look at it. But I find for that that's personally hard for me to understand because I don't think there's that much wrong with it. But again, my recommendation would just be try to look past that because there's a fantastic game here. And I don't think when I look at the artwork on the tiles that there's anything here that's going to ruin that experience for you. And again, like you said, I think we're all a little bit spoiled with Kickstarters because there's a type of Kickstarter that is, predominant, which is, the Tidal Blades and the Frost Havens and, all the Come On games where it's about miniatures and art and presentation and deluxe components and all this stuff. But if this was a $70 game, base level, I would be a little more understanding about some of this because there would be a way higher expectation. I feel like for, in our region, a $32 Kickstarter game, that's one of the lower ones that I've seen, like that we've been wanting to back a while. Normally I'm backing minimum $50, $60, $70 Canadian. That is way above or like beats my expectations of what I was going to have to pay when I was anticipating this campaign in the first place. So for me, I was excited about that and still love the box arts, love the gameplay, and that's just sort of what's driving me to it. So I won't spend any more time on it. Again, I think everyone's entitled to their opinions. Absolutely. I just think we need to kind of leave it at, if you don't like the artwork and it's a non-back for you because of it, that's totally fine. But I think to just drive the conversation so much about that to try to, I'm going to keep this conversation going until they change it for me so that I can back it. Like that's not what Kickstarter's about. Like this is the game, and if you don't like it, don't back it. That's totally fine. Or wait and see when it comes out that you can see the physical version and make that make that choice for yourself. I think that's completely valid too. And I think that's just kind of what we have to remember with it. So that's the artwork. Big conversation going on, but not deterring me from my instant back on it. So next thing I wanted to talk about is there are some other things with the campaign that I wanted to mention that I think are legitimate things that should be talked about with some of it. There was some confusion, and even I was confused about the 2 levels. And just so to clear that up, especially if you're considering backing it, there's a Jarl level. It's Jarl. That's how you pronounce it. Yeah. Carlo's my guy. I just always ask if I'm pronouncing things correctly. So there's a Jarl level, and there's the base level, which I think is called the Viking Pledge. So the Jarl level adds something that says the secret runes, and then there's bonus components to play an epic 2-player version, and then there's deluxe upgraded rune stones. So much of the mini expansions and additions to this game involve runes that there's so much confusion because on one level, it seems like we get the runes in the base box, but they're cardboard, and then all of a sudden it's like back the Jarl Pledge and you'll get secret runes. The clarification there is that you are getting mini expansions in the base box. You're getting one additional mini expansion in the Jarl level called the secret runes, and so that's the extra incentive there. And then of course the upgraded runestone components, and the epic 2-player version is literally just more components that you can play the 2-player version on the new expanded larger board that accommodates 3 and 4 players, which I guess we should have said. Yeah, this version of the game plays up to 4 players, which is another big change you can enjoy. So, and all these mini expansions are done by Phil Walker Harding, which is something else we didn't mention, who's done a whole bunch of games.
Sushi Go, he's done Barren Park, Gizmos, does tons of these kind of light to medium range games. Great designer.
Yeah, pretty cool that he has his touch on this and stuff. So that was the one thing I wanted to clarify, is that for me, it's in hindsight, it's a minor thing, but when you have a campaign for a game that's really, there's not a lot to the campaign. It's a very simple game and it has a very simple campaign, which I think is absolutely appropriate. There's only 2 pledge levels. If you have confusion between those 2 pledge levels, you've done something wrong with the way you've structured your campaign. Like, you shouldn't need to have confusion there when there's simply 2 pledge levels. Anytime I've had confusion, it's because there's 4 different levels and I'm trying to figure out which ones I get and what. I feel like that was a little bit disappointing for me. Did you have the same confusion with them at all? Or?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it wasn't entirely clear. I was kind of wondering the same thing because, like you said, it mentions the deluxe, but and at one point I think on the page I saw that there's 4 of these, but then I think somewhere else I saw that there was 8. So then I wasn't sure, is the Jarl just upgrading the 4, or is it, So
just a little bit of, and I noticed that in the comments too, so at least I had some validation that I wasn't just a complete moron or something.
No, and to be fair, I think Grail Games, like, they've been, to their credit, they've been in the comments responding, and I think they clarified that and said that they wanted to put it somewhere where it is a little clearer, but it's just something to be aware of if you're looking at pledging it and considering and actually looking at those levels. So
yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to mention, but I'll ask Carlo a question first, is if you were coming to back Fjords, when would you think you were going to be getting Fjords?
Of course, yes.
When do you think you'd be getting it based on this?
Well, I mean, all down the side it says estimated delivery November 2021, and that's where I tend to look because it's
I find that like, so I will say that it's not like this is hidden. It's in the campaign. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you will get an entire section way down to the bottom that talks about timeline for delivery. The thing I don't like here, and it could just be my pet peeve, but I feel strongly about it, is that everywhere on the side when you back on the actual like estimated delivery, when you back the game, it tells you November 2021. It's only when you scroll down to the bottom and look at the timeline graphic that it says that for the 3 most popular regions that I would imagine are backing this, which is the US, the EU, and Canada, and Australia, or a part of the Australia fulfillment, is all January to March 2022. So again, it's a couple months. It's not like I'm upset that I have to wait a couple extra months to get the game. I would have been fine with that had it been labeled that way. It's just, to me, it seems silly to just put the estimated delivery at the earliest it's going to ship, which is only to Asia. That to me is a little disappointing. Like, that's not your primary fulfillment centers. I know that the highest amount of backers are coming from North America and Europe for sure. So it just seems like a sneaky way to say like you're going to get this game early, and then people back and say, oh, I didn't realize I'm not getting it until March. Seems pointless. Like, just tell us up front when it is. Put the latest date in the estimated delivery.
Exactly.
And then,
it should have just said February or March 2022, and then that way, if it shows up early, it's a bonus rather than us knowing like there's no way that we in Canada are going to get it in November 2021. But that's
you'd rather be a pleasant surprise than be disappointed by what you find out. So to me, that was just something that could have been changed in an update. I didn't personally like that, but again, it's not something that at all deterred me from backing it. It was just an unpleasant surprise. But other than that, like, the shipping costs are what you expect. I could talk about them and say I'm disappointed that shipping ends up being so much on Kickstarter campaigns, but at this point, I think we've said that enough till we're blue in the face. We're always a little disappointed with that. But yeah, overall, my thoughts on this is that this is a fantastic game that was basically lost to time. You couldn't find it, or if you did, it was hard to find. It was through the secondary market. It was out of print. I played it by fluke because of my local game cafe had a copy. This is an opportunity to get that game into our hands from a designer who is unfortunately no longer with us, and be able to experience that game and introduce it to more people. And to me, that's the most important thing that we're taking away from this campaign. We can all debate the artwork, and technically we're all right. Like, I'm right if I like the artwork, and you're right if you don't like the artwork. Like, everyone is entitled to those opinions. I just think that the conversation being so focused on that, when it should be focused on the fact that we're going to get to re-experience this game finally, and some people are going to experience it for the first time. And if it wasn't for this, that might never have happened. That's, to me, where the conversation should be, and whether we choose to back it or not back it is all our individual choices. But that would be my recommendation, is that I personally think this is one of the best 2-player only games I've played. Yes, it introduces a whole bunch of other modes and ways to play, but to me, I'm just excited to be able to, play that with my partner more and introduce more people to it and actually have Fjords on my own table. That's what I'm excited about.
Absolutely. And I want to say, just going back to something you touched on before, is that even though there is a 3 and 4 player mode and there's these variants and stuff, like, I'm excited. And for anyone out there who might have played the original and really liked it and might be concerned about any changes they've made, the designer's been very clear. There is a specific section in the rules that says, like, classic rules, like all the rules for how to play the original 2-player game the way it was. I think there's been a couple of minor tweaks to the regular rule set in here, and then there's others that are considered variants, but I feel like this is about as good of a job as you can do to pay tribute to something without kind of messing too much with the original and making it your own, but giving people enough to make it feel like it's not just the reprint of the original. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. If you hadn't backed it, I would have already backed it. Because you backed it, I'm on the fence about either backing it, or if not, at the worst, I'm definitely going to get it as soon as it comes to retail. And yeah, like Dylan said, it's a fantastic 2-player abstract game, lots of tension, and just, yeah, a great game, and a reprint you should be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, so those are our thoughts on the Fjords campaign. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, if you want to talk about it in the comments, we'd love to discuss it. I'm so excited about this game, so I would just love to talk more about it. One final question, because it's I think one of the most important ones, is does this game have any relation whatsoever to New Fjord?
I
no relation?
Can't tell if you're serious right now.
No relation?
I don't think so.
There's not many games out there with Fjord in the title, so I'll have 2 of them in my collection with New Fjord and Fjords. Just want to make sure this isn't like a secret sequel.
Well, I
or
believe
anything,
a fjord is a type of region, like a valley or something, whereas Fjord, I think, is a specific place in Norway, if I'm not mistaken, or a word for a fishing village. I'm not exactly sure, but
this is great because now we don't have to have a bunch of comments asking this question in the video. We just answered it for you. So there you go. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.